A warm welcome and a good afternoon from the Zero Project Conference 2026. It's a conference about disability inclusions on the topic of accessibility, ICT and crisis response. We are broadcasting live here from Vienna, and I have two guests with me, Nora Dörke and Thomas Wignall from EASPD. And without further ado, Thomas, I hand over to you and you explain us in detail what EASPD stands for and what you do all day.
Well, thank you very much, and very thankful to have this opportunity to present a little bit what EASPD does, but actually more generally why cooperation at European level is so important to drive change in the way that people. So it's the European Association of Service Providers for Persons with Disabilities, so not just the European Union, but broader than that. It can be employment, it can be training, education, disability support sector across all these countries. Why do we do this? Is because many of these organizations are struggling in terms of transformation towards aligning with the principles of the UN Convention. So how to support people in the open labor market, how to support people to live independently in their communities, how to support people to have the same choices and opportunities as everybody else in society. The UN Convention is very, very clear. There's no doubt about that. The challenge is how to do that. And what we do and see is we try and find what progress is being made around Europe, what works in terms of the direct support that's being provided, but also in terms of the policy environment. And we try and share those good practices across Europe to inform discussions. So, for example, we have a good practice here in Vienna. Let's say around housing, for example, where Vienna is often seen as a good practice. If in France they're discussing how can we improve our housing policies, well, we can say, well, listen, in Vienna they do it like this. In Bulgaria they do it like this. In Finland they do it like this. So it's not necessarily to tell people what to do, but it's to inform the discussions and to try and shape that type of activity. What we try and do is systemic change. Not necessarily a good practice at local level. Of course, we want to promote good practice at local level, but that's one of the issues that we find is most of the best practices in terms of how we support people can be very, very local. I see here in the crowd Franz Wolfmeyer from here in Austria, through Transb. They are an excellent best practice in a part of Austria. But is that best practice, let's say, a system-wide practice across the entire country? Can a person who lives in a completely different part of the country to, in this case, Transb, get access to the same type of support? Right now, that's not the case, and that's what we want to change. So system change is what we're really looking at. But system change by identifying good practice and having good practice shape good policy and good policy shape good practice. And the two together is what we try and do, but on a cross-European scale.
Thank you. I could imagine such a big membership organization. How do you set the agenda? What kind of processes have you in place to send, to determine which highlight, which topic?
So we don't set the agenda. The UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities sets the agenda, and we sort of take it from there, if that makes sense. And of course, we work closely to our colleagues, for example, at the European Disability Forum and the OPDs that do their job very well in terms of in some ways, like what they expect from us in terms of doing it, and we sort of take it from there. In general, we see, of course, major differences across Europe. It's very difficult to compare Bulgaria to Finland to Portugal to Ireland. But actually, the more we discuss things, the more we see similar challenges, really generally across the agenda. So it's the sharing of the challenges that are faced, but how each of us overcome it. And we have a general tendency to always reinvent the wheel. So we think, okay, we have a great practice somewhere in Brittany in France. This is brand new, this is very fresh, and that's often not the case. So it's the good practice that shapes our agenda, and we do the good practice to be able to show what works to then shape the policies alongside that. So the UN Convention gives us sets the tone. It's our responsibility to work to implement it, and we do that by identifying good practices to then shape practices everywhere, but more importantly, the policies everywhere too.
Our organizations have a close relationship, as most of you know. And you know also the Zero Project, we look for innovations in the four main topics of the convention: accessibility, employment, education, and independent living / political participation. And this conference in this year is on accessibility. Nevertheless, we will talk about an employment topic, which I think, especially in times like this, when there seems to be a stronger headwind against us, that it's of utmost importance to bring people with various disabilities into the labor market. And I think you have been spearheading a pan-European initiative called Support. And Nora, please, what is Support? What does it do?
Thank you, Wilfried. Indeed, now I'm representing here together with Tom the Support project that's main goal is to reduce the long-term unemployment among persons with disabilities by scaling up and transferring two socially innovative supported employment practices coming from Austria and Belgium. And we would like to implement these practices in 8 participating countries. This project is supported by the European Social Fund, and it will take 3 years. We started last year in July, and the consortium brings together European networks such as Association for Supported Employment Europe, European Platform for Rehabilitation, Out of the Box International, Zero Project, and also Association Européenne pour la Démocratie Locale. And we implement these practices in 8 countries, in Austria, Belgium, Croatia, Greece, Italy, Norway, Romania, and Spain. And how we can do it? So our first phase of the project is an extensive research phase, where we map the employment landscape of persons with disabilities, what the barriers are in the implementation of the supported employment. We have 3 main target group: persons with disabilities, service providers, employers, and employment services. And we're involving all of them in this research phase. Based on that, we will develop a comprehensive training program for employers, for the service providers, and for the employment services. And in parallel, we're also contacting persons with disabilities, and thanks to the help of the job coaches and the service providers, we are creating a vocational profile for this person. And at the same time, we're also making connection with employers. And it's really important to see both sides, to see the needs of both sides in order to achieve the job matching. For example, like to be sure that a person with disabilities has a meaningful job that meets all of their needs. For example, we can do it with job carving. But how the supported employment will be implemented completely, because this project doesn't provide support only in the placement, but it is really important, the job retention is really important. That's why, thanks to this project, we also provide support and ongoing support, not only for the employees, but also for the employers, because this is the main element of the supported employment. And in addition, all of that, we also provide grants for employers. By the end of the project, we will employ 130 persons with disabilities in the mentioned 8 countries. And now we are like after the first half of the year of the project, we have a really good results in the research phase, a really good basis. We have the good proven practices, and now we are really exciting how we can implement it.
You said it's gonna span over. Thank you. It's gonna span over 3 years. So what are the other phases? It seems that the research phase is now over. So what happens next?
Next, so now we started to create the comprehensive training program. By the end of the research phase, we will have local adaptation and implementation strategies for the 2 supported employment practices. Thanks to the research phase, we know now the needs of the 8 countries, all of the key actors that has a really important role in the supported employment. And based on that, we will create 3 training programs, 1 for the employers, 1 for the service providers, and 1 for the employment services. We will implement these training programs during summer. and this summer in 2026. And after that, we will, like in parallel, we will also start to build a relation with the companies and also build a relation with persons with disabilities. I already mentioned the vocational profiles. Thanks to this, we know that which type of job we're also interested. They are interested and they would like to do, and also exploring with the companies what they can offer, and see together that how the job placement and after the retention can work. And from the second half of the year, after the training program, implementation of the training program, we will start step by step the employment phase in the project.
And how do you find companies? I mean, companies, I would imagine they don't apply. So what kind of force or how to persuade them? How does this work to onboard them?
We work together, service providers in the project in a countries, very dedicated service providers who already build relation with companies. They already implement the supported employment practices or provide support for persons with disabilities to find job. So they have already like an initial connection. But thanks to the research phase, we also outreached employers because we had a survey that was completed by the three mentioned target groups: service providers, employers, and employment services. Around more than 1,200 stakeholders completed this survey, and also they attended focus group discussions. So thanks to the research phase, there is already a connection, an initial connection, and we are so glad to be here at the Zero Project Conference as well, because here we also would like to see and meet potential companies in the 8 mentioned countries who are willing to employ persons with disabilities. And really this project provides many tools, many support that can help to create these models, implement these practices, and after transfer to other countries as well.
So let's look at the other side. How do people with different disabilities apply? What's the selection process? How does this work?
It's again with the support of the service providers. So the service providers work directly with persons with disabilities. So already they have, how to say, a network of persons with disabilities that they know, but also it is part of the project to outreach even more and more of them. So it's a really important phase that we have a strong engagement phase, not only with the employers, but also with the persons with disabilities. But also the European networks help also the dissemination, the outreach. They have a wide range of membership. And we would like to work together and bring together all the potential service providers that could recruit and find persons with disabilities. We are focusing mainly on persons with intellectual disabilities, but we are also open to other type of persons with disabilities.
Thank you. Could you just give us 2 or 3 examples of job profiles? Whom are you looking for?
It will be, I could reply to this more the second part of the project. So we don't have, so this was also really important. We didn't want to identify any type of job before we mapping the landscape, we mapping the skill needs. So it will be a back and forth. Also, we are in connection with companies. Also, they have some type of job offers, but it's only one side. We also need to know the needs, the skills of the other side. So if we can talk about it maybe then in the next conference 1 year later, I think we can tell more about the profiles indeed.
Good. So the project started last year, so it's going to last until 2028?
Indeed, it's a 36-month project, so it will finish indeed in 2020.
And what's happening then? So we assume we have the 130 persons per 8 countries, so we are talking about 1,000 jobs. And what's the next step? I mean, how high is the probability that this becomes a European policy, or what is the next strategy? Maybe Thomas.
Yeah. So I started, I think, at the beginning where we try and improve the link between good practice and good policy. The good policy is needed to make it more systemic. Again, that it doesn't really matter where you live in that country, you can get access to the same type of quality support. So what we're doing here is we're sharing a good practice from Belgium and from Austria. in countries where maybe the systems aren't as well developed and the practice is not so well developed. And by showing that it works in these countries, and by using EU money to show that it can work, the idea is to convince the government to then actually put in place policies and create this enabling system to help these service providers to actually do their job in a better way. Because often they do the job, but the environment doesn't help them. So that's at national level. And in Europe, most of this work is done at national, regional, or local level. But there is, of course, a space for European level initiative. I know that the European Commission is looking very closely at supported employment because they know the barriers. They know that it's not the norm yet across Europe. Still, various forms of sheltered employment, and there's different names for it in different places of Europe, is still very much the norm. Even though we know that supported employment really works and is effective too. So we know that the Commission are looking at how can they maybe help and guide and provide input into and recommend to each national government how to develop supported employment systems. And again, looking at where it works and proving that it works, because then it's very hard to sort of say, no, we don't want to do it. They can still do that if they want to, but it's a lot harder. So again, trying to bridge the local to the national policy, to the European policy, and making the most of what already happens, the great supported employment providers that take place really across Europe today, and making it the norm.
You are an association which is not only in the 27 membership countries, but really you are very strong in the Balkans, in Eastern Europe. Where do you see the benefit to be real European instead of just the 27?
It's on the basis that we, as a British person, I can respond quite openly to that question. Even though there is, of course, clear value in being part of the European Union, I think is that we share the same challenges and we share the same opportunities. Supporting a person in a local business in any part of the world the challenges are very, very similar. It's about mindsets, it's about support to the employers, it's about knowledge, it's about support to the person, it's about the local community and how to enable that. And of course there are differences, but the similarities in the challenges and overcoming the challenges are very, very similar. And here we're talking about Europe, but I have in front of me colleagues from the United States, and the more we speak to each other, the more we understand that the challenges are very, very similar. So yes, the EU can play a role in terms of the policy governance and those types of processes, but we are more than just the EU at EASPD. It's very much about how local organizations can learn from each other and improve what they do and not reinvent the wheel or think that nothing can ever change. And I think that's the philosophy that we try and work in, and not just focus on the European Union alone, even though there are clear benefits to it.
Thank you. I mean, we have definitely the same mission to not to reinvent the wheel for the umpteenth time, and learn from each other. You are, I know you will not admit it, but you are a Brussels powerhouse. So what's on your agenda besides now this employment initiative?
So the European Union, they are now focusing on the second stage of their European disability rights strategy. So they're building on that now. And we are very much hoping, in fact, we're pushing maybe for the Commission too strongly, but for them to focus on supported employment. And this project is aligned to that. Most of the legislation is done at national, regional, local level. But there are some very big policies that can impact and do impact in this case, the employment of persons with disabilities. The European Social Fund is one that finances this project, but it finances in many countries most of the employment support projects across Europe. So they're renegotiating the next EU budget. The European Social Fund is, under the Commission's current program, is being replaced by a completely different system, which has its strengths, but also when you're changing systems, it also has its concerns. So we're really focused on the EU budget. That's really 2 billion euros over 7 years. It's 2 trillion euros over 7 years, not all in our area. We expect around 25 billion, for example, in the area of social inclusion. So still, 25 billion is huge. But then you get more technical policies like public procurement rules or state aid rules. And state aid is what allows subsidies for reasonable accommodation or for covering costs of employment or training and these types of things. So and they're currently under review by the European Union, and they have common standards across the Union. So it's a bit technical, maybe not the most exciting topic, but actually it's the legislation that makes the difference across. So we are really, really focused again on making sure that the EU can really use its tools to support the change at a national level, and we are there to show what's needed from a local level to bridge that gap, local to European.
If I listen to you, it seems that that money is not an issue. I mean, to some extent it is, but to some extent it isn't. But what does it really take, in your opinion, that that policies and also different methods what you're researching really trickles down to the people concerned?
I would disagree. Money does matter. It's not everything, mindset, but money sometimes is about how to use that money and what arguments are behind that money. If you're not spending money, for example, on supported employment, and you're therefore not creating those opportunities, the same people may be unemployed for the rest of their lives, and that's also a huge cost as well. So I think we should be talking about money, but again, it's not only that, and it's really about making the best use of money. I think is and having a nuanced discussion about it, rather than a simplistic we can't afford this or that. We're talking about investments, and that's the agenda that we're pushing, and we're hoping that our policy makers will see the investment like we do, an investment in people.
We are running a conference here for 3 days. We have about 1,500 people over the 3 days. And the topics, as I said before, are accessibility, ICT, and crisis response. And the beauty, we think, is that we have almost 100 countries represented. So what are you looking for concretely to connect, to support, to learn at this conference?
When people ask me about the Zero Project and what is it, I'm not sure it's the right way of putting it, but I always say it's the Oscars of the disability rights world. For me, that's the simplest way of explaining it. It's far more than that. It's really the place to be internationally, not just European-wise, that connects people. Not so much only on the policy only, but really on the practice and the reality that people live in. I was driven by the people with disabilities and their choices. And that's what we get here, is this sort of international energy that is needed, especially in times right now where we tend to disconnect from each other. And so what I look for here is for connections, for relationships, for sharing common principles and values, and then for learning from each other, and again, not reinventing the wheel, because again, we're focused on Europe. That's our scope. It's what we do. But we need to also focus on going beyond Europe, because there's a lot of great things happening too. But maybe Nora can be a little bit more technical and with the businesses side. I think there's a clear message.
Indeed. So from the support point of view, we are really happy to be here and share the project with everyone. Now, what here at the Zero Project we're concretely looking for, as we mentioned, we are building now up the connection with companies. And here at this conference, we met many great companies. So we're looking for those companies who are willing to employ persons with disabilities, and also service providers who would like to be part of the project by supporting us in recruiting persons with disabilities, or they know potential companies that could be also involved in the project. It would be great to contact with them. We also have a stand, but I can also show what you should look for. We are next to the escalator, so we have a stand. We are there whole days, and we are really open to share more information about this project.
All right. Yes, sharing and connecting each other is one of the main purposes of the conference. I'm sure most of you have used B2Match. It's this matchmaking platform where you can take appointments. I see a lot of nods, but still some people maybe have not heard it. Please take advantage. Or also, and this is also, we have printed button for the first time this year, but just walk up to people, introduce yourself, and start this a conversation. We think it's one of the main benefits to have so many countries and so many different organizations represented. Thomas, famous last words. What's your outlook? You know, we are at the beginning of the year. Maybe you talk about your conference's topic. You always run these shows twice a year, please.
Yes, and so obviously the Zero Project is really a hub for these connections. We also, as a community of 20,000 organizations, but the people behind that and the principles of what we do, we also meet twice a year for our different conferences. We were meeting in Porto, in Portugal, in May, and there we are looking at not necessarily how support is being provided, but we're looking at how to make sure, what is the backbone of that support? So how can we make sure that support providers, that the workers have the skills and the support to be able to deliver person-centered support? We're looking at the financial strategies that organizations can go to make sure that they can use their money in the most flexible way that can actually help deliver on what they're trying to do. So we're looking at the backbone of support provision effectively, which is often missing from these discussions. But maybe even more importantly, in October, on the 5th and 6th of October, we will be having our 30th anniversary in Brussels, where we'll be discussing the relationship between the changing world that we find ourselves in today, and how does that impact disability support, but inclusion in general. Sometimes we are focused on ourselves and we don't look at the world around us, but to actually enable change, we need to also consider the change around us. And that can be geopolitical, it can be digital, it can be in terms of social relationships, and we're going to be looking at those interactions as well as I think a very big party too for our 30th anniversary. So if you like rain as well, then Brussels is the place to be on the 6th of October.
Well, we can offer only snow, but it's you know, it's not unusual for this time of the year. Nora, some last comment, please.
Again, thank you for the Zero Project, that we can be here and we can represent the support project. As I said, we are in a really interesting part of the project. We finished the research phase and we start now the training program. So I invite everyone to follow us. And really, if you are interested, you are a interested company or a service providers who see any potential collaboration between you and the projects, do not hesitate to reach out us, our partners. They are also here in the audience. So we are really, really happy to share what we are doing, and we hope that next year we can share even more and more successes from the project.
Wonderful. Nora, Thomas, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You've been watching a stream from the Zero Project Conference 2026. It's a conference on disability inclusion on the topics of accessibility, ICT, and crisis response, and we thank you very much for your attention.